Russia has declared that it is now in a hot war with the United States. And hot war means guns and bullets and bombs and tanks and so on. This means troops on the ground fighting each other directly. Russia has made this declaration now. Breitbart has a story. They say Russia, and of course this is not like an official, Putin came out and said, we're declaring war on America. It's not like that. But it is them acknowledging that they believe that they are in a conflict of that level with the United States. Breitbart says the United States is playing with fire and engaging in a hot hybrid war with Russia. Having already graduated from a Cold War stage, a Russian government minister has claimed, incredibly even going so far as to blame the U.S. for rising nuclear tensions. And he said the new Cold War is already over. Because, again, they were saying that tensions between the U.S. and Russia and really Ukraine as a proxy fighting force between Ukraine and between the U.S. and Russia is very similar to how things were happening during the Cold War. They're saying that stage of the conflict is over, and they're now engaging in a more direct conflict with the United States. A new Cold War is already over. A Kremlin spokesperson said, apparently looking past Russia's own role in invading Ukraine and accusing the United States of playing with fire by pushing the world towards nuclear war that he insists Russians wish to avoid. It says the comments come just hours after Russia announced it had deployed nuclear-capable missiles on the borders of NATO in Belarus and refitted Belarusian jets with the equipment to carry and drop nuclear bombs. Moscow made a tacit accusations that the United States was to blame for this, saying Russia was doing no more than Americans already did in stationing nuclear weapons in the territory of European allies. Speaking Wednesday, Russia's Deputy Foreign Minister, Sergei Ryabkov, made the hot war comments and said, per release of this discussion from a government-controlled news outlet and propaganda service, quote, I think we have already passed this period of Cold War. Now we are in the phase of a hot conflict with the United States. We are witnessing the direct involvement of that country, the United States, in a hybrid war with Russia on various fronts. Now, that being said, Ukraine was talking about launching actual operations deep into Russia. And allegedly, at least, the Biden administration prevented them from doing that. Russia could take this as a sign of the U.S. actually restraining Ukraine. But there's mixed analysis on this, whether Ukraine was actually going to do that at all, or whether it's we're going to do it now, you better give us more money type thing, which they can keep saying indefinitely until we decide to stop giving them money. Depends on which side of this conflict you're on, basically. But again, believe what you will. The Biden administration allegedly did restrain Ukraine from launching deep strikes against Russia. CNN had the story. They say Ukraine is prepping to strike back against Russia. Timing will be key. And they say weather the storm, exhaust the enemy, and then strike back. This has been the mantra of Ukraine's military for months, one echoed by U.S. and NATO officials since the winter. So much for the idea, but can it be executed? And so if, where, when, and with what? Meaning, well, what are you going to give them? What kind of money are you going to give them? It says even the Ukrainians themselves may not yet know, as they study the 1,000-kilometer front line for Russian vulnerabilities, just as they did when suddenly launching the surprise September offensive in the northeast region of Kharkiv. But they are aware it will be a crucial chapter in the conflict. Major General Kyrlo Budanov, head of Ukraine's defense intelligence, said in an interview last month that Russia and Ukraine will fight a decisive battle this spring, meaning probably now. And this battle will be the final one before this war ends. Now, they are claiming that the current battles taking place in Ukraine are going to decide who wins and who loses and what happens after this. This is important because China, interestingly, has stepped in to negotiate the peace, which we'll get into in a minute. And that has huge implications for the U.S., meaning this is no longer just a U.S., Russia, NATO type conflict. This is about who governs the whole world, essentially, type conflict. Back to the point, though, CNN says that suggests the Ukrainians may take their time to maximize capabilities. Predictions are a fool's errand. There will be plenty of bluff and disinformation about the intentions in the coming weeks, but preparations are well underway. They say the essential preconditions for Ukrainian counteroffensive include the completion of training and integration of new units, degrading the Russian rear, a resilient logistics chain, and real-time intelligence. Now, there's a couple major blows being done to this right now. One of the major blows being the fact that, well, media tends to blow the lid on everything. If you are planning to launch an invasion, and again, war is mostly through deception. Deception is a key part of warfare through most of human history. Even medieval battles oftentimes included ruses. There was always an element of deception. If you look at ancient Japanese and ancient Chinese military tactics, Sun Tzu would write about the importance of deception in war. If you read books like Outlaws of the Marsh, you'll find that in every single battle, this is in China, every single battle included, anyone that won at least, very strong use of deception and smokescreens and illusions. Read the writings of Alexander the Great. You'll find deception is a huge part of war, no matter what part of the world you're in. And the problem that America has, if they want to launch an offensive, every major media is going to have front page pieces telling you exactly how many troops they're sending, exactly where they're sending them, exactly what they're going to be doing. Everybody's posting on Twitter and social media and doing TikTok dances, showing them dancing to the helicopter and then posting like where they're going to go to. And everybody says every single thing they're going to do before they do it. And then what do you think is going to happen? Our adversaries are following their enemies, us, on TikTok. They're like, this guy's doing a Fortnite dance, at that road down the street. Let's go check that out. And it gets our troops killed. And it blows the lid on every single thing we do. And it's utterly detrimental to U.S. strategy and utterly detrimental to the lives of our young men and women on the front lines of wars. It's this type of stuff that gets people killed. And unfortunately, our press has a terrible track record of getting inside sources that blow the lid on things like this and get our troops killed. Anyways, it's very hard for the United States to run military operations because of this. Because we are a country that has a huge amount of transparency. We are very transparent with, things we probably shouldn't be transparent on. And unfortunately, due to corruption, we're overly protective of things that probably deserve some dang transparency. But this brings us to another thing that took place just recently, which is there was a huge Pentagon leak. There were documents made public. An individual posted different classified files on public networks, including Discord, which is a chat group. It runs chat groups and so on, and other platforms like that. A concerning note on that is they're talking about creating additional security measures to ensure leaks like that don't happen in the future. I should note they already have technology like that, insider threat. They call it insider threat detection for the military, which makes me concerned on 2 points. One is they already have monitoring techniques and technologies for military. If they expand it, they can only expand it by monitoring public networks, which means they're going to be surveilling you and I in ways that I believe violate the Constitution. We're protected from illegal searches and seizures. Unfortunately, going back to George Bush and the Patriot Act, a lot of our basic freedoms of being protected from government surveillance were thrown out the window, and we let it happen. But getting back to the point of this leak, the Pentagon leak said some very serious things about Ukraine. Among the things it said was that keep in mind, this could be disinformation. It's possible this is disinformation. It is possible America's playing 4D chess and the Pentagon's releasing false information to deceive not only our foreign adversaries, but our adversaries in the media as well. I'd say many of whom are basically acting like foreign adversaries at this rate, depending on the conflict. But the Pentagon leak said something very concerning. One of the main things it said was that actually casualty numbers are different from what we've been told, that Ukraine has been losing a lot of troops, and that Russian casualties are not nearly as high as we've been told they are, suggesting that Ukraine is losing the war. Now, that might not be true because other people have said the opposite, and there is what I would consider credible evidence saying the opposite. War, as I mentioned before, is deception. By its nature, it's going to be hard to tell what is true and what is not true. And anytime you see any kind of public reporting on war, keep that in mind. It's possible, even from a very reputable source, that what you're seeing may not be true. In fact, I know for a fact, because I have friends who used to serve in these things, even a lot of public information about war is not true. A lot of it is fake. There's a huge amount of deception. And there are groups that intentionally release false information, including in America, in order to mislead not only foreign adversaries, but even the American press. Take it for what you will, in other words. But back on the Pentagon documents, something big is happening with this, which is Russia is taking this as evidence of U.S. deeper involvement in the war. And based on their taking of that evidence, they're expanding the war. And America is what they believe America is the real adversary with this.